what is my personal and professional experience. I'm a person who's based in Padova, in the northeast of Italy, very close to one of the first red zones in Italy and in Europe, with pretty comfortable personal life from all types of perspectives, but also quite a regular personal and professional experience in Argentina and in Brazil and sometimes elsewhere. So the personal experience is, of course, an experience of major change. I'm a person that travels maybe too much, maybe with a too impressive footprint, but also with many social bonds in places that are both near me, but especially far away, badly affected. I guess Marcelo has an idea of what does it mean to be today in Villa 31 in Buenos Aires, for example. So when you take it as a whole, Argentina is relatively better off than Italy, but then the amount of people that are affected by this emergency and die because of this emergency are really concentrated in one of the place where I work the most and when I have friends and I feel at home really with important social bonds that make me feel privileged and also cut off, because maybe at this time that is a place where I would like to operate and intervene, and I understand that even getting enough information is rather overburdening people that are already overburdened at the moment to cope with that. And also professionally, I navigate across the educational field in higher education, but also supporting educators, both in school and in adult education. I do support other professional networks, for example, in music therapy and in especially supporting refugees and migrants that are in a situation where they can be discriminated, marginalized, they are more fragile, let's say. So there's a lot of rights involved in there. And of course, there is a general issue of housing rights. So my personal and professional experience in a certain way has not changed, but has enhanced the feeling of injustice. If I had to choose a word that is like the one that strikes me the most, I wouldn't say there is a major change. I would say there is a feeling of injustice that was not absent before. On the contrary, maybe that's also what moves me in a number of situations to be active. But the type of discourse and the type of rhetoric that are addressing both educational, economical, territorial planning issues, I feel sometimes really are neglecting the core issues, both in terms of social injustice and then health and educational issues. And that applies also to what I record as the major discussion, at least in Italy, but also I think everywhere, which is a very simplistic, a very naive idea of what it is distance education, and much less reasoning around learning experience and learning environments as such. I think especially in formal education, we've been through a terrific opportunity of valuing, acknowledging, recognizing, sharing the learning that takes place in our everyday life, very much connected to the life we have, enhancing the affective life we have. There's so much that wherever we live, we are learning at home and in the relationship with our families, with our friends. And that, in my eyes, has not been taken into account or has been very often neglected or considered just some kind of potential support or scaffolding for some kind of so-called distance education. And that distance education has been super biased by a reflection about examination, evaluation, and assessment, and very little regenerated by this opportunity that I feel we had, because we didn't take it, to start to take so much more into account the personal and daily experience of people and their ability to critically read what they are going through by a phenomenological experience of comparing those views with other people. Something that I think, for example, within early and especially within special interest group 10 in early, we've been very often discussing in terms of very specific projects and research. And here I felt the opportunity was enormous, and it's not happening. And this is even more striking when you think that maybe the first major moral and practical message of this pandemic is there's something fundamentally wrong in our relationship to our rhythm of life, to the nature we are part of. And if you want to think dichotomic, is around us, you know, the green around us. And of course, you have to address it in a pedagogical way, and this is not at all part of the discussion. So while pedagogies are still a niche somewhere, but not part of the discussion. So what I've learned in this process is the difficulty of deconstructing basically a dominant, a mainstream discourse about education that reduces education to schooling, schooling to some kind of building and examination, and in absence of that building, to the same kind of control in terms of the examination, or giving up in terms of the quality of the examination, but does not place the learners as individuals and as collectives at the core of the learning process. And I think we have to come to terms with that. Many kids are glad not to go to school. There is an old rhetoric here of how much it is important to get the people to meet. They meet.
Yeah.
It's not that school is not important at the social level. On the contrary, it's extremely important, but this polarization in between sort of a dull idea of what instruction is, and then the rhetoric of, but that's the social place. No, that's not the social place. That's one place biasing social relations for good and for bad. And for many people, it has been a major relief not to have to go to school. So I'm not sure how much I can contribute in the future. My best experience throughout these 100 days, that's the number of days we've been kind of locked down in Italy, is supporting with different tools, attitudes, communities of practice. And that has been also the most rewarding experience, like communities of practice that didn't exist before, from educators to music therapists to theater of the oppressed practitioners. They got together, and it's very inspiring and energizing to have this opportunity. And there I see this more phenomenological attitude of sharing different views, listening to these different views, and trying to build both a response to what is happening, but also some kind of future perspective. So maybe there, in terms of supporting communities of practices that don't reduce education just to trying to go back to normal, I see an opportunity.